Welcome back to 20 Life Learners. Our speaker for today is Tom Grieg, a UCT Law postgraduate student. Tom is especially passionate about politics in Africa and is the co-founder of the Daily Dose SA, a South African current affairs platform that makes the news both approachable and easily accessible. In this presentation, he unpacks his journey with politics and gives us insight into some learnings and views that he's picked up along the way. Tom aims to build the bridges needed in the pursuit of equality, while also highlighting the challenges we currently face in South Africa, which requires dismantling narratives that do not factor in our colonial past. Finally, he ends with some lessons and tips that can help you navigate your own journey with politics.
This evening, I'm going to talk to you about politics in Africa. So usually that word makes people run away very quickly and hide under their beds. But this evening, I won't be talking so much about political things. I'll just focus more on my journey with politics and hopefully engage in a bit of a discussion afterwards. So from a very young age, now that the scene is set, I've always been very fascinated and intrigued by Africa and particularly politics in Africa. But when I was young, I knew all the capitals and everyone used to test me out of the atlas, and all of the currencies and the presidents, and I loved the flags and all of that kind of stuff. I wasn't learning the names of rugby players, but Africa just seemed to be something that gave me a platform, it gave me a voice, and it was something I really enjoyed. Why that passion came about, I have absolutely no idea. It just came. But later on, I realized that to truly understand more about the continent, you have to learn about its history. So as I grew older, I read Long Walk to Freedom, which I really enjoyed. And then later on, I read Martin Meredith's book, The State of Africa, which I highly recommend. As he goes through a journey on the gaining of independence on the continent for many of the African states. So as time went by and I went to high school, I started to focus more on South Africa, particularly current affairs. And that's where my love for politics really started to blossom, and particularly my fascination. And so, it was no longer about capital cities and currencies and presidents. I started to focus more on things like South African ministers and their names and political parties and their manifestos and elections and all that kind of stuff. Until in 2015, I was invited to speak at the Youth Voices conference, which I was not expecting at all. And I had no clue what I would speak about, but ultimately, I realized that, growing up, so many people around me, I thought, were just so inherently pessimistic about Africa and its prospects and its future. A lot of people were saying they want to just go and live overseas as soon as they can. And I mean, these are youngsters, the youth. So when I started writing up my speech, I thought, what, there's so many great aspects to this country and this continent. So in my speech, I spoke about, I used a lot of stats and facts that I think a lot of people don't know about. And things like, a huge increase in access to water, access to electricity, life expectancy, which has increased, the biggest rollout of antiretrovirals in the world. But then obviously, it's not all good. And I'll never forget, for the rest of my life, back in 2012, when Marikana happened, and I was actually watching the news at the time, and live footage came on, and to just see people getting mowed down, I felt very disheartened myself, very disillusioned. And that's when I realized, it's to have a lot of faith and hope is actually really difficult. That Marikana massacre will forever stick in my memory. The tough times haven't ended there. We had the Life Esidimeni debacle, where so many people with psychiatric conditions died at the hands of the health department in Gauteng. We've had state capture, debacles like in Kanlat. I mean, it's quite a big list. Anyway, so in trying to put a title to the speech, I called it An African Sunrise, mainly because, you know, initially in '94, there was so much hope, opportunity, and we were growing and everyone was keen on this journey. And then, you know, suddenly we've started to have some really bad things coming to South Africa's socio-political landscape, and it's challenging our future. So yeah, you know, it's more of like a sunset and we're starting to sink into the darkness. But what I try to remind people is that no matter how long the night, the day is sure to come. So, you know, we can always have a sunrise again, and it's up to us, the youth, to make sure that that happens. Anyway, so then when I was at varsity, I gave another speech at the Social Awareness Week, which was at a high school in KZN. And as you can tell, I love my metaphors. So I entitled this talk, Building Bridges. But my focus with this speech was more on how, you know, South Africa and most African states actually are emerging from a colonial, hundreds of years of a colonial past. And in the case of South Africa, also apartheid. And we can see that there's greener pastures there. There's, you know, we know where we want to be. But you can't just wake up and suddenly get there. There's many obstacles in the way. So we have to build and get ourselves there. And, you know, some challenges that I could just think off the top of my head are things like, you know, I think people often underestimate the impact that the colonial demarcations has had on Africa, because unlike other places of the world, borders, state borders were drawn up according to things like rivers, physical attributes like rivers and mountains, and had little consideration for ethnicities, cultures, languages. And that's often something that still to this day has had a huge impact on conflicts in Africa. So these are like some of the challenges that, you know, we have to overcome. And also what I've realized in the wake of giving this speech is you can't just wake up tomorrow and we're in a new place. A lot of people have to have time to heal and speak about the past and recover from it in a sense. And a lot of people are saying, you know, that the TRC fell short of that. So I think it's very important for a healing process to also take place. And then, you know, ultimately, you know, I think that the Constitution, South Africa's Constitution, is the blueprint or the roadmap in this building this bridge process. I think it's a wonderful progressive document. And I think that, you know, the whole of society should focus on it more. Cool. Then, so yeah, just a bit of background to this. This is in no ways like my views or anything. It's just a random illustration just to make a bit of a point. I've called this the 7 pillars of liberalism, but yeah, take liberalism very loosely because that's obviously a political ideology and it's changed over the centuries. But it was just, I'm just trying to find a word to say, you know, in the pursuit of equality or being everyone equal before the law. So yeah, I think that we need to reconsider how we think about race, religion, gender, class, sexual orientation, the environment, persons with disabilities, and I'm sure there are a whole lot more. And I actually think this ties really nicely with what Naledi spoke about with intersectionality. But basically, I think that we all feel strongly about certain topics, and we want to see a greater degree of equality and progress in a certain field. Like someone may feel very strongly about, you know, like something like BEE and greater racial equality in the workplace, but less strongly about, I don't know, religious equality. And I think that what is important is that we are able to harness those passions where they exist strongest and then exert those same sentiments onto the other pillars. because we all know that feeling of when you feel strongly about something, but other people might not feel as strongly about it, but we can at least learn from each other just through the emotion that we have on that particular topic, and we can grow from there. So that's just my belief. And in Zulu, there's the saying, umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu, which basically just means, I am because you are. So I think as a community, we can really grow and learn from each other through these pillars. And then, in August of last year, a close friend and myself, we founded the Daily Dose. And we've loved it very much. It's been a very interesting journey. We had our 200th post the other day. And basically we try to make people not fear the news. We try to make it approachable, understandable, and a quick one read a day from Monday to Friday. And also, particularly during this whole COVID period, we've seen amongst our friends and stuff how fake news just spreads like wildfire on WhatsApp messages. And I actually think it can be really damaging. So if we can even play a small role in the Daily Dose by just trying to put out some news that is well researched and is fact oriented, we stray from subjective news. We're always trying to stick to the facts and keep it short. So it's been a very interesting journey, and we also tried to balance the good with the bad. But unfortunately, we are stuck with the 2 C's at the moment of COVID and corruption. Anyway. So just some of the lessons I've learned along the way since my passion began when I was very young is that firstly, if you believe in something, I really think it's important that you defend it. For many years, I've been the sole dissenting voice at the dinner table. And it's really hard, particularly when you're young. You've got lots of people around, and you feel like the odds are stacked against you. And I also think that people feel like to make a change, or to make a difference, it has to be something grand. Whereas in my opinion, South Africa's a very young country. We're growing up in a different space to that of our parents and our grandparents. And I think that we can actually make a huge difference at the dinner table. I think that's where it counts in our case as the youth. Anyway, so I also think I've realized over the years that even when you feel strongly about something, and it's often the case in politics, feel very strongly about something, we must still be good listeners and not push other people away who have different opinions to us. When I was younger, I felt strongly about my views and I'll just sort of shut other people out. But I've realized that in listening to others and being open to learning from other people, I can actually get insight into their views, which can strengthen my own views. So I think it's really important, that second point. And I'll pick that up later on. And then finally, politics, like I said from the beginning, it can be overwhelming, it can be scary, it can be disheartening. But, things like the Daily Dose and all that kind of stuff, I actually really enjoy what I do. People often say, like, why would you put all of that effort into that blog, whatever, and you're not even getting any cash and nothing? But we love it. We love every second of it. We have so much fun, and it's a passion. So, I just think as long as you're enjoying what you do, never stop it. And then, just to finish, I thought I'll just leave you with my favorite African proverb, which is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Thank you.
Thank you to this week's Life Learner. Please stay tuned for our next video.